Asman Show.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Here it is. Biggest moment of a legendary career. Phil defeats Father Time.
It's very possible that this is the last tournament I ever win. Like if I'm being realistic, but it's also very possible that I may have had a little bit of a breakthrough in some of my focus and maybe I go on a little bit of a run. I don't know. But the point is that there's no reason why I or anybody else can't do it at a later age. It just takes a little bit more work.
Phil Mickelson, your champion at the PGA. Unbelievable. Shot a -6 overall for the tournament, and it's Lefty's 6th major championship, his first since 2013, and he becomes the oldest player to ever win a major at the age of 50. He turns 51 next month. Unbelievable. And when you think about the career of Phil Mickelson, this to me has to be by far and away his greatest accomplishment. And the guy is already a Hall of Fame golfer. But what I love about this for Phil is that when you think about Phil Mickelson's career as a golfer, it's always been overshadowed by Tiger Woods. You know, Phil Mickelson is beloved by fans. But Tiger was always the guy that's the all-time great, that's chasing Jack, that stole the headlines time after time. You know, if you watch the HBO documentary done about Tiger and Phil talks about the fact that Tiger has always kind of one-upped him, always been there. You know, Phil's had his moments. He's won some majors. Obviously, this was his 6th time doing so. But the storyline with Phil was always, well, Tiger Woods is better. But Phil was the more likable golfer. Phil was all about the fans, and Tiger was kind of cold and kept to himself. Phil was outgoing, friendly, and that's why you saw the crowd react the way they did all weekend long in South Carolina. But I love this for Phil because he had his moment for every fan to truly appreciate him. He's as likable of an athlete as you have in sports. And for so much of his career, Phil was always being overshadowed by Tiger Woods. Arguably the greatest golfer of all time. It's like if you use the tennis analogy, Andy Roddick played in the shadow of Roger Federer. Like Andy Roddick would have won more than one major if he didn't always have to run into Roger Federer at every major championship in tennis. It's similar with Phil in golf, with Tiger Woods here. And for Phil now to get his 6th total major, with ties him for 7th all time, and to have this kind of moment, it's like the final stamp of a legendary career. And when you think about the competition that Phil's had to face in his career, he's one of the greatest ever. And I don't know enough about golf to give you a definitive ranking. I'm not going to pretend like I do. But when you consider the competition Phil's had to face in his career now, just like what Tiger's had to now face the last 10 plus years. I mean, that major win is as impressive of an accomplishment as you could have in golf. And you could argue it's one of the more impressive accomplishments in sports. I mean, when you start getting compared to, what's the guy's name? Old Tom Morris. That's when you know you're doing something pretty damn historic. By the way, Ron, did you see how old Tom Morris looked in 1867? If that's what he looked at age 46, my God, did people look a heck of a lot different back then than they do now.
I'm hoping that photo was taken 30 years after old Tom Morris got his nickname Old.
I mean, how old was old Tom Morris if he's getting his nickname Old in 1876 or 1860, whatever it was, 1867? I mean, you get the point. We're going back a long way. But it's an incredible accomplishment for Phil. He's as likable as any athlete. I mentioned that. I saw it firsthand. So 2 years ago on Long Island, I went to the PGA Championship at Bethpage. And Phil didn't play particularly well that week. I think he made the cut, but he was never really in the mix. And after his final round on Sunday, he stayed back and signed for at least an hour to every fan that lined up along the fence by the Players Clubhouse. And I have a video I tweeted out over the weekend of us really close to Phil as he's signing every autograph. And the fans are going crazy. He's joking around, messing with the fans. That's why Phil's so beloved. He gets it.
Yeah, I have my beloved Phil story too.
What's yours?
I was at the 2011 Phoenix Open, also known as the Waste Management Open. That's the golf tournament with the infamous hole 16, which is they literally build an entire stadium around a par 3 hole, and it is just rowdy as rowdy can be. If you're ever in that area when the tournament's going on, go on a Saturday. Trust me. Anyways, it was a Sunday, and he wasn't in contention at all, but he was getting ready to putt, and I had my 3-month-old with me at the time. Or my middle son was 3 months old, who's now 10. And just as Phil's about to tap the putt or hit the putt, my 3-year-old started crying, or my 3-month-old started crying. So I had to walk away. He kind of stepped back, gave a look towards the crowd. We made eye contact for a second. I gave him that, dude, sorry. He gave that shrug like, you're dad. And then went on and just putted.
You had that moment with Phil.
I had my eyes locked moment with him.
And there'd be a lot of guys that would react differently to that.
Yeah, if I brought it up to him, he probably wouldn't remember.
That's okay, because he impacted you.
It was a meaningless hole.
Now, the thing with Phil that, as I mentioned at the top, he always lived in the Tiger shadow, and now he rightfully gets that standalone moment for golf fans.
But the one thing he would say, because, we always make that argument, is like, oh, how many tournaments would he have won had Tiger not been a golfer?
Yep.
And he said probably none, because it was Tiger that pushed him to be as competitive as he was.
See, that's a guy taking the high road.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be honest, there could have been at least a few.
There could have been. I mean,
Tiger
you look at the amount of times he finished second. I mean, he still hasn't won the U.S. Open yet.
Well, that's the only thing that can make this a great accomplishment. If Phil now goes out to win the U.S. Open,
he won't.
And completes the career Grand Slam.
He won't.
But here's the thing. When you think about, among all the golf accomplishments, obviously Tiger winning the Masters in 2019 was the more significant golf moment. But I would argue this is the greater achievement, because Tiger Woods' issues were a lot of which self-inflicted, and of course a lot of it was injury stuff.
Well, Tiger's championship closed the book.
And Phil is 8 years older than Tiger was when he won that Masters in 2019. So Tiger's, Masters win was more emotional for fans. It was more significant for the storyline of the game of golf. But Phil's win here, to me, is a greater accomplishment than what Tiger did. And I think it's even more significant when you consider the guy that he was going neck and neck with, the guy that was in his final group, is Brooks Koepka, who we all know plays his best golf in the majors. He's already won 4 times. He's won the PGA twice. This is a guy that you don't want chasing you down, and Phil was able to outlast him and hit some clutch shots when he had to. He never unraveled. This was unbelievable. And for Phil to win when he was 200-1 at most of the sports books, and some books had him at upward of 300-1. It's one of the great accomplishments in the history of sports. It really is.
And I think, the other thing to think about, aside from Brooks Koepka, all the big name players, all the stars of the game, of the stars of the sport right now, were absent on Sunday. No Jordan Spieth, no Rory McIlroy. None of those guys were really in contention. Morikawa, who has won recently, he wasn't in contention at all. Brooks Koepka was there, and I thought for sure when the round started yesterday, I'm like, okay, here comes Brooks Koepka. Brooks and Phil off the first hole just flip-flop places just like that. And I thought, okay, all right, well, Phil, it's a good run. I think we all thought that. I was like, Phil, it's a good run. You're in the final pairing on a Sunday. You can't. That's a great achievement.
And when you think about Phil's year in 2021, this was the 6th event that he's played in on the PGA Tour. He missed the cut in the first 5 of them. So for him to then go out there and win the PGA Championship, this just came out of nowhere. And it's why we love sports.
So is he juicing then?
Your words, not mine. How dare you? I think Phil just altered his diet, which we'll get to.
He's not juicing. He's coffeeing.
He's working out the calves. That's what it's all about with Phil. But for him to win this event when he's missed the cut and everything else he's participated in, it truly is unbelievable. And what you love about this is Phil 12 days ago tweeted this: "I've failed many times in my life and career, and because of this, I've learned a lot. Instead of feeling defeat countless times, I've used it as fuel to drive me to work harder. So today, join me in accepting our failures. Let's use them to motivate us to work even harder." 12 days ago, he tweets that. 12 days later, he's lifting the Wanamaker Trophy as a PGA champion at the age of 50. It's an unbelievable moment. And for Phil Mickelson to win this event, It's great for the game of golf. And it's great if you're a fan of sports, because a lot of times we deal with all the nonsense that sports gives you for a moment like that yesterday with Phil. That was a lot of fun to watch. And what a day it was yesterday with everything going on in sports. I mentioned the 3 TVs I now have in the living room. You needed all 3 if you're a real sports fan yesterday. Between the NBA playoffs, 4 games Saturday, 4 on Sunday, NHL playoffs, regular season baseball, there was a lot happening, and we have a lot to cover, including a new villain that has emerged at Madison Square Garden. Trae Young beat the Knicks last night at the buzzer, basically. We'll get to all that and much more from the first weekend of the NBA playoffs coming up next right here on the Jake Asman Show.
Hey, sports fans. Jake Asman of Sports